Hi, guys.
Stasha, wait, come back. Why are you in this fabulous outfit? Talk to me about this outfit. Pink on pink on pink on pink. What's going on, dude?
Well, and I've also got this Disney shirt.
Oh, another pink shirt, yeah.
At school, it's wear your favorite color day, and pink is my favorite color.
Oh, I was going to guess your favorite color was orange.
No. It's pink.
And do you have a pink crown on, too?
Yeah. But also, although it's my sister's.
That's right, it is your sister's.
It's my sister's.
Well, thanks for joining us for another social distancing story time. It's another late afternoon one today, but we found some time to sneak it in, and the sun is shining, and it has warmed up enough so that the sun isn't just mocking me outside. We're going to start with Jemima Puddle-Duck? Okay, we're going to start with Beatrix Potter's Jemima Puddle-Duck here in our outdoor story time, because we are psyched to get out of the house. All right, let's see if I can turn these pages. Let me get a little closer too. Whoop! What a funny sight it is to see a brood of ducklings with a hen. Listen to the story of Jemima Puddle-Duck, who was annoyed because the farmer's wife would not let her hatch her own eggs. Her sister-in-law, Mrs. Rebecca Puddle-Duck, was perfectly willing to leave the hatchlings to someone else. I have not the patience to sit on a nest for 28 days, and no more have you, Jemima. You would let them go cold, you know you would. I wish to hatch my own eggs. I will hatch them all by myself, quacked Jemima Puddle-Duck. She tried to hide her eggs, but they were always found and carried off. Jemima Puddle-Duck became quite desperate. She determined to make a nest right away from the farm. She set off on a fine spring afternoon along the cart road that leads over the hill. She was wearing a shawl and a poke bonnet. When she reached the top of the hill, she saw a wood in the distance. She thought that it looked like a safe, quiet spot. Jemima Puddle-Duck was not much in the habit of flying. She ran downhill a few yards, flapping her shawl, and then she jumped off into the air. I don't know how that's going to go. How do you think it's going to go? She looks kind of funny. Oh! She flew beautifully when she had got a good start. She skimmed along over the treetops until she saw an open place in the middle of the wood where the trees and brushwood had been cleared. Jemima alighted rather heavily and began to waddle about in search of a convenient dry nesting place. She rather fancied a tree stump amongst some tall foxgloves. But, seated upon the stump, she was startled to find an elegantly dressed gentleman reading a newspaper. He had black prick ears and sandy-colored whiskers. "Quack!" said Jemima Puddle-Duck, with her head and her bonnet on one side. "Quack!" The gentleman raised his eyes above his newspaper and looked curiously at Jemima. "Madam, have you lost your way?" said he. He had a long, bushy tail, which he was sitting upon, as the stump was somewhat damp. Jemima thought him mighty civil and handsome. She explained that she had not lost her way, but that she was trying to find a conveniently dry nesting place. Uh-oh. "Ah, is that so, indeed?" said the gentleman with sandy whiskers, looking curiously at Jemima. He folded up the newspaper and put it in his coat-tail pocket. Jemima complained of the superfluous hens. "Indeed, how interesting! I wish I could meet with that fowl. I would teach it to mind its own business. But as to a nest, there is no difficulty. I have a sack full of feathers in my woodshed. No, my dear madam, you will be in nobody's way. You may sit there as long as you like," said the bushy, long-tailed gentleman. He led the way to a very retired, dismal-looking house amongst the foxgloves. It was built of faggots and turf, and there were 2 broken pails, one on top of another, by way of a chimney. "This is my summer residence. You would not find my winter house so convenient," said the hospitable gentleman. There was a tumble-down shed at the back of the house, made of old soap-boxes. The gentleman opened the door and showed Jemima in. The shed was almost quite full of feathers. It was almost suffocating, but it was comfortable and very soft. Jemima Puddle-Duck was rather surprised to find such a vast quantity of feathers, but it was very comfortable, and she made a nest without any trouble at all. Why do you think there might be feathers? Stasha, why do you think there might be feathers in his house? Come take a look. See if you can figure it out. When she came out, the sandy-whiskered gentleman was sitting on a log reading the newspaper. At least he had it spread out, but he was looking over the top of it. He was so polite that he seemed almost sorry to let Jemima go home for the night. He promised to take great care of her nest until she came back again the next day. He said he loved eggs and ducklings, and he should be proud to see a fine nestful in his woodshed. What do you think's going on?
I don't know.
Jemima Puddle-Duck came every afternoon. She laid 9 eggs in the nest. They were greeny-white and very large. The foxy gentleman admired them immensely. He used to turn them over and count them when Jemima was not there. At last, Jemima told him that she intended to begin to sit next day. "And I will bring a bag of corn with me so that I need never leave my nest until the eggs are hatched. They might catch cold," said the conscientious Jemima. "Madam, I beg you not to trouble yourself with a bag. I will provide oats. But before you commence your tedious sitting, I intend to give you a treat. Let us have a dinner party, all to ourselves." "May I ask you to bring up some herbs from the farm garden to make a savory omelette? Sage and thyme and mint and 2 onions and some parsley. I will provide lard for the omelette," said the hospitable gentleman with sandy whiskers. Jemima Puddle-Duck was a simpleton. Not even the mention of sage and onions made her suspicious. She went round the farm garden, nibbling off snippets of all of the different sorts of herbs that are used for stuffing roast duck. And she waddled into the kitchen and got 2 onions out of a basket. The collie dog Cap met her coming out. "What are you doing with those onions? Where do you go every afternoon by yourself, Jemima Puddle-Duck?" Jemima was rather in awe of the collie. She told him the whole story. The collie listened with his wise head on one side. He grinned when she described the polite gentleman with sandy whiskers. He asked several questions about the wood and about the exact position of the house and the shed. Then he went out and trotted down the village. He went to look for 2 foxhound puppies who were out at a walk with the butcher. Big delivery. Jemima Puddle-Duck went up the cart road for the last time on a sunny afternoon. She was rather burdened with branches of herbs and 2 onions in a bag. She flew over the wood and alighted opposite the house of the bushy, long-tailed gentleman. He was sitting on a log. He sniffed the air and kept glancing uneasily round the wood. When Jemima alighted, he quite jumped. "Come into the house as soon as you have looked at your eggs. Give me the herbs for the omelette. Be sharp." He was rather abrupt. Jemima Puddle-Duck had never heard him speak like that. She felt surprised and uncomfortable. While she was inside, she heard pattering feet round the back of the shed. Someone with a black nose sniffed at the bottom of the door and then locked it. Jemima became much alarmed. A moment afterward, there were most awful noises, barking, baying, growls and howls, squealing and groans, and nothing more was ever seen of that foxy, whiskered gentleman. Presently, Cap opened the door of the shed and let out Jemima Puddle-Duck. Unfortunately, the puppies rushed in and gobbled up all the eggs before he could stop them. He had a bite on his ear, and both of the puppies were limping. Jemima Puddle-Duck was escorted home in tears on account of those eggs. She laid some more in June, and she was permitted to keep them herself, but only 4 of them hatched. Jemima Puddle-Duck said that it was because of her nerves, but that she had always been a bad sitter. Star, do you know what the problem was?
Yes, because Jemima Puddle-Duck went in his house.
And why was his house a bad place to go? Because what kind of an animal was he?
A fox.
And what do foxes eat?
Eggs.
and ducks. She was going to be cooked, and she was going to make an omelet out of the eggs. All right, now we've got Dr. Seuss's ABC.
Except he didn't eat her.
No, because the collie dog rescued her.
Who's the collie dog?
Oh, well, her friend Kep. You missed it when the UPS guy came. Big A, little a. What begins with A? Aunt Annie's alligator. A. Big B, little b. What begins with B? Baba, baby, bubbles, and a bumblebee. Big C, little c. What begins with C? Camel on the ceiling. C. Big D, little d. What begins with D? Donuts and a duck dog. D. Big E, little e. What begins with E? Ear, egg, elephant. E. Big F, little f. What begins with F? 4 fluffy feathers on a feff. Big G, little g. What begins with G? Goat and goo-goo goggles. G. What accent am I using? I don't know, but it seems most appropriate with these words. Big H, little h. What begins with H? Hungry horse, hen, and hat. H. Big I, little I. What begins with I? Itchy, Ichabod. I. Big J, little j. What begins with J? Jerry Jordan's jelly jar. J. Big K, little k. What begins with K? Kangaroo and kite. K. Big L, little l. What begins with L? Lion with a lollipop. L. Big M, little m. What begins with M? Mice in the moonlight. M. Big N, little n. What begins with those? 9 new neckties, nightshirt, nose. Big O, little o. What begins with O? Ostrich oil, orange owl. O. Big P, little p. What begins with P? Painting some pajamas pink. P. Big Q, little q. What begins with Q? The quick queen of Quincy and her quacking quackaroo. Big R, little r. What begins with R? Rosie's red rhinoceros. R. Big S, little s. What begins with S? Sammy's sipping soda pop. S. Big T, little t. What begins with T? 10 tired turtles on a tuttle tree. Big U, little u. What begins with U? Uncle Ub's umbrella and his underwear. 2. Big V, little v. What begins with V? Verna Vera Vin and her violet violin. Big W, little w. What begins with W? Willie's in the wash tub washing Waldo Woo. Big X, little x. What begins with X? X-ray and xylophone. XXX. Big Y, little y. What begins with Y? A yawning yellow yak. With Yolanda on his back. Big Z, little z. What begins with Z? A zizzazazzazuzz, as you can plainly see. Have you ever seen a zizzer-zazzazuzz?
No.
No, me neither. All right. The Sailor Dog. By Margaret Wise Brown, illustrated by Garth Williams. Born at sea, in the teeth of a gale, the sailor was a dog. Scuppers was his name. After that, he lived on a farm, but Scuppers, born at sea, was a sailor, and when he grew up, he wanted to go to sea. So he went to look for something to go in. He found a little submarine. All aboard, they called. It was going down under the sea, but Scuppers did not want to go under the sea. He found a little car. All aboard, they called. It was going over the land, but Scuppers did not want to go over the land. Scuppers was a sailor. He wanted to go to sea, so Scuppers went over the hills and far away until he came to the sea. Over the hills and far away was the ocean. And on the ocean was a ship. The ship was about to go over the sea. It blew all its whistles. All aboard, they said. All ashore, they're going ashore. All aboard. I don't know if that looks so seaworthy. The sails look a little rough, don't they? So, Scuppers went to sea. The ship began to move slowly along. The wind blew it. In his ship, Scuppers had a little room. In his room, Scuppers had a hook for his hat, and a hook for his rope, and a hook for his handkerchief, and a hook for his pants, and a hook for his spyglass, and a place for his shoes, and a bunk for a bed to put himself in. Oh, hello.
I was trying to, fix it.
It's okay. The tripod's in good shape.
To, get it.
To tighten it up? Okay. Yeah. I think it's good. All right. Yeah. Okay. At night, Scuppers threw the anchor into the sea, and he went down to his little room. Let's turn it so you're not looking so much at me and more at the book. Okay. He put his hat on the hook for his hat, and his rope on the hook for his rope, and his pants on the hook for his pants, and his spyglass on the hook for his spyglass, and he put his shoes under the bed and got into the bed, which was a bunk, and he went to sleep. Have you ever slept in a bunk bed? Stasha, have you ever slept in a bunk bed? Yes. No, yeah, you didn't get to sleep on the top bunk yet, but you did get to sleep on the bottom bunk. Next morning, he was shipwrecked. Too big of a storm blew out of the sky. The anchor dragged, and the ship crashed into the rocks. There was a big hole in it. Scuppers himself was washed overboard and hurled by the huge waves onto the shore. He was washed up onto the beach. It was foggy and rainy. There were no houses, and Scuppers needed a house. But on the beach were lots and lots of driftwood. And he found an old rusty box stuck in the sand. Maybe it was treasure. It was a treasure to Scuppers. It was an old-fashioned toolbox with hammers and nails and an axe and a saw, everything he needed to build himself a house. So Scuppers started to build a house all by himself out of driftwood. He built a door and a window and a roof and a porch and a floor all out of driftwood. And he found some red bricks and built a big red chimney. And then he lit a fire, and the smoke went up the chimney. Did a pretty good job, didn't he? Oh. Then the stars came out, and he was sleepy, so he built a bed of pine branches, and he jumped into his deep green bed and went to sleep. As he slept, he dreamed. If he could build a house, well, then he could mend the hole in the ship. Oh, good idea, Scuppers. So the next day at low tide, he took his toolbox and waded out and hammered planks across the hole in his ship. At last, the ship was fixed. So he sailed away until he came to a seaport in a foreign land. By now, his clothes were all worn and ripped and torn and blown to pieces. His coat was torn, his hat was blown away, his shoes were all worn out, and his handkerchief was ripped. Only his pants were still good. He is looking a little bit rough, isn't he? So he went ashore to buy some clothes at the Army and Navy store and some fresh oranges. He bought a coat. He found a red one too small. He found a blue one just right. It had Rewind. He found a blue coat just right. It had brass buttons on it. Then he went to buy a hat. He found a purple one too silly. He found a white one just right. He needed new shoes. He found some yellow ones too small. He found some red ones too fancy. Then he found some white ones just right. Here he is with his new hat on, and with his new shoes on, and with his new coat on, with his shiny brass buttons. He has a can of polish and a cloth to keep them shiny. And he has a new clean handkerchief, and a new rope, and a bushel of oranges. And now Scuppers wants to go back to his ship. So he goes there. And at night, when the stars came out, he took one last look through his spyglass and went down below to his little room, and he hung his new hat on the hook for his hat, and he hung his spyglass on the hook for his spyglass, and he hung his new coat on the hook for his coat, and his new handkerchief on the hook for his handkerchief, and his pants on the hook for his pants, and his new rope on the hook for his rope, and his new shoes he put under the bed, and himself he put in his bunk. And here he is where he wants to be, a sailor sailing the deep green sea. Should we sing the Scuppers song, Sta? Do you remember it? I am Scuppers the sailor dog. I'm Scuppers the sailor dog. I can sail in a gale right over a whale. Under full sail in a fog, I'm Scuppers the sailor dog. I'm Scuppers the sailor dog. With a shake and a snort, I can sail into port. Under full sail in a fog. Cha, cha, cha. Okay, now we've got Goodnight Little Blue Truck by Alice Schertle and Jill McElmurry. Bumpity bump, down the road came the little blue truck with good friend Toad. Thunder crashing, lightning flashing, two good friends were homeward dashing. Such a wet and stormy night, their warm garage was a welcome sight. In they went and shut the door, but it wasn't very long before... What's gonna happen? "Ma," said the goat, "please, Little Blue, can I come in here with Toad and you?" "Cluck," said Hen, "it's wet outside. I need a nice safe place to hide." "Honk," said Goose, "don't care for lightning. Stormy nights are a little bit frightening." "Moo," said Cow, "can I come in too? I feel safer in here with you." "Quack," said Duck, "there's quite a crowd. Can I squeeze in? Are ducks allowed?" "Oink," said Pig, "is there room for me? I'm cold and wet as I can be." "Beep, beep, beep," said Little Blue, "there's room for you and you and you. Everybody gather round. Thunder's such a grumbly sound. Clouds bump and tumble in the sky, but here inside we're warm and dry. And all the thirsty plants below will get a drink to help them grow." Close to Blue, over and under, they listened to the rain and thunder. Duck said, loud as he could quack it, "Thunder's just a noisy racket." "Boom," said Goat, "it isn't scary. I was not afraid, not very." "Just a noise," said Pig. "No wonder. I'm not scared of a little thunder." After a while, the clouds blew on. The night was still. The storm was gone. Goat said, "We feel better, Blue. It's easy to be brave with you." Pig said, "I feel sleepy now. Let's all head for home," said Cow. "Beep," said Blue. "Just hop inside. All aboard for the bedtime ride." The rain had stopped, and way up high, the moon was a smile in a starry sky. "Good night, Pig. Here's your pen. Good night, Duck. Good night, Hen. Good night, Goat. You're home now. Good night, Goose. Good night, Cow." Horn went beep. Engine purred. Friendliest sounds you ever heard. Blue and Toad drove home together, two good friends in any weather. Toad lay down on his own small bed. Croak. "Good night, Blue," he said. Blue gave one small sleepy beep. Then Little Blue Truck fell fast asleep. Okay, now we'll read a little bit more of New York in 4 Seasons by Michael Storrings. We read all of fall the last time we were outside on this bench, and then we read about some of what happens in the winter in New York City. And I think we were just getting to what happens in the new year. Yep, here we are at Chinese New Year. So this is a book that tells you all about the cool things that happen in New York City all year round. Let's learn about Chinese New Year. Larger than life, lavishly colored, wildly ornate dragons and lions dance acrobatically through the streets of Chinatown and downtown Manhattan each year during the Chinatown Lunar New Year Parade and Festival in celebration of the Lunar New Year, which falls in January and February of the Western calendar.
I don't remember seeing that.
No, it was way down in Chinatown.
Where's Chinatown?
In the lower part of Manhattan, or there's also kind of another Chinatown in Flushing, Queens, so further out on the 7 train than where we lived. The narrow thoroughfares of Chinatown teem with magnificently decorated floats, acrobats, magicians, and more than 5,000 performers as a cacophony of lutes, gongs, and marching bands fills the air. The pops of firecrackers keep evil spirits at bay, while generous swashes of red and gold, the auspicious colors of good health and good fortune, bring revelers happy tidings for the new year. Food vendors and neighborhood restaurants offer an array of dumplings and a host of other Chinese delicacies, many with the words good fortune added to the name for the occasion. The animal symbols of the Chinese zodiac abound, as the attributes of each animal combine and interact to shape the destiny for the coming year. Ooh, the Westminster Dog Show. We like to watch the dog show on TV. That dog show. The Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show.
It's just about dogs.
It is just about dogs, because it's a dog show. Your sister likes it.
I don't, because I don't like dogs. I like squirrels.
You like squirrels, and also you like to watch baking shows. Loves baking shows, this kid.
But that there's no more.
Well, we'll find another baking show. There are other ones other than Nailed It.
Because Nailed It, we did 4 seasons,
And you've watched all of them?
and Daddy said this was the 4th season.
Yeah, it's the last season.
This is the last season,
Yeah.
which means they're not going to do it again this year.
Well, yeah, but there are other ones we can watch. The Great British Bake Off.
They're not going to do it this year again, but they're going to do it next year.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye. We'll find you another baking show. I know you're into it. Do you have any favorite shows that you're watching in quarantine? We're watching a lot of baking shows. Okay, so the Westminster Dog Show. The Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show has been a tradition in New York since 1877, making it the second oldest continually running sporting event in the United States after the Kentucky Derby, which is a horse race. Now held in Madison Square Garden over 2 days in February, the show is limited to 3,200 canine competitors, that means dogs, of virtually every breed recognized by the American Kennel Club. Breeds are organized into groups: sporting, hound, working, terrier, toy, non-sporting, and herding. That's my favorite. I love the herding category.
Wait, they teach you about dogs that get hurt?
No, herding, not hurting. I also like working dogs. Herding means they herd animals like sheep. They help on farms. The dogs compete for the best in breed, then best in group, and finally the most coveted prize, best in show.
What is it? Oh, I see it.
That's what they're trying to win, the big trophy. Westminster gets its name, well, it changes every year. Westminster gets its name from a long-gone hotel in Manhattan where sporting gentlemen, i.e., hunters, that means hunters, would gather in the bar. Eventually, they formed a club and bought a training area and kennel, and in the spirit of camaraderie, named it after their favorite drinking haunt. Should we start reading about spring a little bit? Okay, so what months are spring? We're right in the middle of spring right now. What months count for spring, Stasha? That's a day. March, April, and May.
March, April, and May.
And Langston Hughes said,
May is my birthday.
May is your birthday. Langston Hughes said, I stuck my head out of the window this morning and spring kissed me bang in the face. Oh, the St. Patrick's Day Parade is the first thing in spring, Stasha. New York City's St. Patrick's Day Parade is a one-of-a-kind event, an amalgam of Irish pride, local politics, religious ritual, and no-holes-barred partying. 150,000 plus marchers, high school bands, bagpipe players, police, firefighters, and 32 Irish county societies, military groups, and of course politicians gather at 5th Avenue and 44th Street for the 1.5-mile march past St. Patrick's Cathedral to the American Irish Historical Society at 79th Street. They used to line up right next to my office, and you would hear bagpipes all day. Spectators number in the millions. First held in 1762, it is the largest St. Patrick's Day parade in the world, and one of the oldest. Erngobra. I believe the second largest in the United States, Curveball, is not Chicago. I think it's Savannah, Georgia. There's some trivia for you. Flower displays. Come late March, New Yorkers are all too ready to banish winter's gray chill with citywide floral extravaganzas. In Midtown, the annual Macy's Flower Show transforms the historic Herald Square store into a lush oasis of bouquets, topiaries, and blossom canopies. Rockefeller Plaza to the north is bursting with tulips. In the Bronx, the Orchid Show at the New York Botanical Gardens showcases thousands of exotic species, while Daffodil Hill in the Brooklyn Botanic Garden blooms yellow and buds start to pop in the Cranford Rose Garden, peaking in June. The Queen's Botanical Garden, with its herb, bee, and Victorian-style wedding gardens, has its origins at the 1939 World's Fair. All right, baseball opening day. In New York, one of spring's most highly anticipated events is the Subway Series, baseball games played between New York's two hometown teams, the Mets and the Yankees. Boo, hiss. We're Red Sox fans here. Both teams' stadiums are easily accessible via the city's subway system. Yankee Stadium in the Bronx via the 4 or D train, Citi Field, the Mets' home in Queens, via the 7 train. The two teams met in the 2000 World Series, won by the Yankees 4-1. See if you can spot the players wearing retired numbers. Easter Parade. We'll stop after this because we're just up to about where we are now. It's just after Easter. The Easter Parade on 5th Avenue. On Easter Sunday, New Yorkers by the thousands exchange their de rigueur winter black for pastel and multicolored finery and promenade along 5th Avenue at the annual Easter Parade and Bonnet Festival. Children, out-of-towners, and even pets are all welcome at this beloved spring spectacle, where the fun is in spotting all manner of lavish, folded, sculpted, and flower-adorned hats, the larger the better. The tradition began in the mid-19th century when the city's social elite would attend Easter church services and then parade their finery on 5th Avenue, the most prestigious thoroughfare in the city. Today, the avenue is closed to traffic between 49th and 57th Streets from 10 a.m. to about 4 p.m. on the day of the parade, and you're just as likely to see families dressed in genteel vintage finery, lace, top hats, and furs, as you are to hear box-toting hip-hop Easter bunnies in dazzling neon colors. Pretty cool. All right, we'll read about cherry blossom festivals and tulips maybe tomorrow. All right, that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for joining us for this social distancing virtual story time outside. Hopefully it's sunny again tomorrow. A girl can dream. Bye.